Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to episode 178 of the Alamodome Audible podcast. This is your host, Jared. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. Adrian, how you doing, man?
What is good? What is up? Wow, 178. Kind of did a double take when you said that number.
That happens to me all the time.
We gonna hit 200 this season? I think it just kind of dawned on me. Whoa,
yeah, pretty sure.
Baby, that's wild. That's huge. I'm so ready for 200. That's awesome. That's got to be monumental. We've got to do something special for that. Maybe another, I don't know, beer party or something.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, 22 weeks, I guess, to plan for it. So.
Can we get Larry Coker on the pod for 200? Like, who's the biggest guest you could possibly get? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, go larger than life on the guest reel for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or we have the greatest guests over 200 episodes of Alamodome Audible, but we bring them back.
Okay.
You know, something like that. I don't know. Let's get crazy.
I'll think of something.
A little bit of both. Yeah.
Maybe start planning.
Yeah. Submit your ideas for the 200th episode.
Every time we have like a random realization like this on a podcast and we start like, you know, hinting that we're like brainstorming or like doing something big, we either blow it out of the water and it's amazing or it just never happens. So you're going to get one or the other. I guess only time will tell.
Well, sometimes we'll brainstorm and people will think we're like making guarantees. And they're like, whatever happened? To be like, no, that was just us thinking out loud. That was all that riff.
We're riffing. We're straight riffing.
Yeah.
So well, this is our first podcast episode. Our first, I guess, like public podcast, because we did have a great Patreon episode last week where we went through pretty much everything other than football, which are some of my favorites to record. Nonetheless, first public podcast that's on your Spotify feed or Apple Music feed or whatever, since we did the Domies. And honestly, the reaction to the Domies was amazing. I think you all. I was shocked how many people watched live. I had to go back and pull the actual stats, but we had like a consistent like 25 to 40 viewers throughout the whole like hour and a half.
Wow.
So that's like, that had to be a couple hundred people that watch it live. And then of course, a lot of people watch it recorded. People listen to the audio feed, obviously. So incredible showing of support for that. And we're only planning to continue to make it bigger, better, bolder, more fun, more outrageous in the future. So just want to say thanks again to everyone who watched and voted and supported. And for people that send in nominations, we take nominations year round for any category. So please hit me up. Try to be a little more organized this year. Like last year, I did a great job tracking the meme submissions. But now I'm like actually going through and like adding other categories throughout the year because we had the awful snafu of totally neglecting the soccer team and the Domies and
until we caught it live on the air.
Yeah. And that
just thank goodness. But it has, and I think there's also just sort of a general desire from you and I and from the people as well to expand the categories. I think we want more topics for Domies to be handed out across the athletics department. So
one of my friends gave me the feedback of having less topics. So because you can't please everybody.
You know, I think So I think what Jared and I are going to strive to do next year and into the future is really sort of make the format award showy, baby. I mean, you know, so we're talking about in ceremony entertainment, right? We're talking breaks, live music. Yeah, it's gonna be incredible. So,
well, you know, on that topic, when you watch the Oscars or the Golden Globes, like, yeah, they do like the whole production and they talk through the nominees for the bigger awards, but there's also that one segment where they go through like 30 of them in a couple of minutes. Or they're
right,
like,
and they're just firing off. Here's your 4. Here's the winner. Here's your 4. Here's the winner. Here, yeah.
You know, best sound editing in a short format live action film. You know, like we gotta start flying through those.
Oh yeah, definitely so. So,
well, if you didn't watch the Domies, please go watch the video on YouTube. Aaron put a ton of time in giving his creative touch to it. I think it adds so much to the experience.
Don't listen to it. You have to watch it. It's the only option. And if you're going to partake and be an audience of the Domies, you got to watch it. And yeah, let us know. And this year, if you didn't vote, make sure you vote. and we're going to get more votes. And I can't wait. I can't wait for another Domies, baby. It's the best. So back in the mix.
And of course, we couldn't do amazing creative projects like the Domies without the benefactory support of all of our Patreon supporters. Oh, man, I'm still killing these segues in the off season, dude.
I'm loving that.
I'm really proud of myself. And those include our big money donors: Ben Tobar, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Zach Espericueta of the San Antonio Podcast Network, our board of trustees members, Digiteek, John Otwell, Lino Perez of Los Dos Rowdy Tailgating, and Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate.
Wow.
I'm getting kind of good at these. They call them ad reads in the industry. Some guy keeps emailing us asking to like professionally edit our podcast.
My gosh. Did you see those? Dude, bro. Today's email was the most outrageous, man. And I credit to him. He's really getting creative, but yeah, no, he sent us like 4 now at this point.
Yeah. It's so funny to think when we first started this thing, just a little SoundCloud podcast, and now people are like constantly trying to like get us to hire them. Like, I don't know, it's just a little trips me out. But again, all credit to our Patreon donors for giving us the backing to do crazy stuff like the Domies and just have a lot of fun covering this UTSA Roadrunners program.
Yeah, and you know what, Jared, your sound editing is just incredible, sir. And I don't think that's anything that needs to be upgraded or done any sort of better by some rando. We keep it in house. And I've edited a couple myself, and that's with your tutelage. So I appreciate that.
Good vocab tutelage. You don't hear that one as often as you should. All right. Well, anyways, UTSA kicked off their, what would it be, the 13th season of spring football now?
Wow, that's right, Jared. Yeah, it would be the 13th. I think you're right. Yeah. 2022. Yeah.
Oh man, now I need a UTSA historian to let us know if UTSA had a spring season in the practice year, or if they started in the fall. I don't know off the top of my head.
12th. I think it's the 12th. Well, unless you're including the season. Did we have a spring practice the year that we didn't play a season?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I think that they probably did. So I think
if we did, then it would
14.
be 13.
No, it'd be 14, right? It
would be 13 if we did. It would be 12. If our first one was 2011, it would be 12.
Well, nonetheless, it feels a little different now with race. I was watching, we're going to get into pro day and the draft and all that later in the podcast, but I was watching some old like pro day highlights of like Dalton Stern running his 40, Kerry Thomas running an out route, catching a football, but these are all from like 2019 and stuff. And it was just shocking to like see all these NFL scouts used to come into like this dungeon of a weight room with like pretty much an unfinished building, perhaps full of asbestos, out there on an intramural field, watching guys run around cones and stuff. And it's like, damn, like this program has come so far.
Right. Unbelievable. I mean, those shots that we saw, like the very first couple of practices from spring practice, JJ and Luca, like from their mobile phone. And it was the backdrop of the race behind guys taking snaps. It was awesome. It was a beautiful scene. A crisp spring morning here.
Yeah, so it's an interesting spring season for UTSA. I think like we still overall know what this team is going to look like. I think there's enough continuity. There's enough returning leaders and stuff like that I don't think there's like a ton of questions around like what the makeup of the team will be. But when you really start to drill down into position by position, there's some pretty interesting position battles that are going to be taking place. There's some guys that have changed positions. So I think there's actually like a lot to watch this spring. And I know like I might not feel that way coming off a 12-win season with like a pretty good chunk of your roster coming back. But, I'm looking forward to seeing the guys that emerge from this camp.
Yep. I think it's a lot of the small details that are actually going to be really, really important in determining where sort of this team heads this season, right? Like you say, we know who the major players are, but as far as those details that need to work themselves out, they're pretty key.
Yeah, I think so. I actually had a post on Patreon, I think last week, my top 5 questions for spring practice.
Yes.
Heading into spring. And, I think there's a lot of attention spent on the running back position. Obviously, with Sincere McCormick Brennan Brady, and BJ Daniels, all having graduated and moved on from UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe there's a little bit too much attention paid to the running back position as opposed to outside linebacker is like a pretty big question mark. I think like running back, if the rest of the offense is as good as we think it's going to be, Frank Harris still under center, you bring back pretty much the entire receiver core, pretty decent returning production on the offensive line, pretty solid depth there as well. You would think the running back position is kind of going to figure itself out.
That's what I wanted to ask you is it one of those situations where the running back is going to be okay kind of either way, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad argument to think. I think that's fair. Totally fair. Because you've got so much continuity in all the other places that the holes should show up, the schemes should work themselves out, and there should be plenty of opportunity for a guy. He doesn't have to be a home run hitter. No. And UTSA has sort of proven that, what is it? The whole is better than the sum of the parts. Is that what it is? But and so, and that's kind of across the board. And that's something that someone could come in here and be a great contributor and they don't have to be a world beater, and UTSA will still run through Conference USA, the Western Division, minus one or two teams that we've got to worry about, the same old suspects. So yeah, I agree with you there. And so outside linebacker is a place that we've kind of, have been wondering about, and even before this offseason. But what other positions do you kind of have those question marks around too?
I think the secondary is still pretty concerning. The first day of spring practice, I went through the roster. I was looking at the updates, like just making sure no one dropped off unexpectedly or, any big changes in height and weight or anything like that. I started looking at the safeties and I was like, man, there's really not a lot of safeties on the roster right now.
Right. Because, in the secondary in general, you're losing Tariq Woolen and Antonio Parks, right?
Yeah. I think there's one other two, maybe not.
And you return Wisdom, you return Corey Mayfield,
Ken Robinson. Clifford Chapman hopefully will be healthy. He looked solid in his limited playing time last season before he got hurt. But he's going to be playing a new position. He's moving further back into the secondary and into like a I don't know if he's a strong safety or free safety, but he was playing like closer to the line when he was at Texas A&M and also a little bit last season. So, really high ceiling player. He's looked good in bits and pieces of play, but still some question marks there. I just think like this team really needs another safety to emerge, whether that's Kelechi Iwachukwu or,
sure,
Javon Debon, guy we haven't really seen much of, or perhaps another transfer coming in over the summer. I don't know. That's a position I'm really going to be watching in the spring game and just see if they're able to contain, JT Clark, Zachary Franklin, Josh Davis. If they can keep those guys from just humiliating them, that'd be a good sign, right? But we know for sure there's been a new starter there, but I think there's also questions about the depth.
And then how about whenever we zoom out and look even bigger picture, longer term than that, the future?
Yeah.
Entering the American Athletic Conference in 2023, and what you would assume to be, and I think I even maybe heard that he has another 2 years of eligibility, or he could, or somehow, but you would assume this is supposed to be Frank Harris's last year. We used to don't really know who's behind him. It's been a whole bunch of youth. Josh Adkins is moving on. So who's going to sort of come up behind Frank Harris and be the quarterback that leads the Roadrunners into the AAC? Because you don't want like a total virgin out there on the AAC your first season out there, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely all eyes on Eddie Lee Marburger. Like he looked great when he played in mop-up duty this past season. Would have loved to see him get a little bit more reps and meaningful minutes. Most of the time he came in and the game was pretty much decided one way or the other. But I think if Eddie Lee can really step in and not only look comfortable, he looked comfortable when he played last year. If he can look comfortable with the ones, that's huge. But even past him, though, you still need a third guy. I'm not sure who that third guy is going to be. You got Diego Tello coming in as an early enrollee, true freshman. I think Cameron Peters, this guy, he's been on the roster for a while. We really don't hear too much about. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is a position that it's fine to have a little bit of unease with.
Yeah, I would say
even if ELM comes in and he is for sure entrenches QB2, I'm still not feeling great about what's left at QB3 and beyond, because we have seen UTSA have multiple seasons where QB3, QB4, QB5 even is going to be in the mix. So
right. And you got to be prepared for some of that turmoil, especially when you're moving up and everything's supposed to get, bigger, stronger, faster. Right.
And you lost your quarterback coach too.
Oh, good point. Yep. And really, you've just never been ever, maybe once upon a time for a couple of weeks in 2014, but you've really never been 3, 4, truly 3 deep, 4 deep at the quarterback position. You've had, I think, one really, really good option, one playable option, and then a lot of question marks. And sometimes they really haven't had that playable option either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last year was probably the best depth UTSA's ever had at the quarterback position. But historically, it's not been a position UTSA has recruited all that well at.
Yeah, that's a fact of the matter. Yeah.
Right. So, I think that's always going to be a position there's a lot of eyeballs on. But to get into those position transfers that we mentioned earlier, I think one that isn't getting enough attention that I think is super interesting is Truman Bell moving from defensive end to outside linebacker.
Yes.
So Bell has been one of UTSA's better pass rushers for, I would say, the past 2 seasons now.
Yes.
And he's kind of quietly productive at the defensive end position. He's very active. He has a great pursuit, but he's always been a little bit undersized for defensive end. I think he even played a little bit of defensive tackle earlier in his career. I really like his chances at outside linebacker. I think he could really blossom there.
He's awesome as a as just a backfield force. I think for the past 2 seasons, he's been a real consistent and guys. You probably wouldn't hear his name called too much if just amongst parking lot conversation if fans were just talking about big forces, but he should be in that conversation. I mean, this guy was consistently getting in the backfield, getting you tackles for loss, getting you sacks. He was a CUSA Defensive Player of the Week earlier in 2021 after there's a game against Middle Tennessee. He had 2 sacks in that game for 28 yards. And even before that, in 2020, he was getting you 4 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks through 8 games. And so he's always been sort of like a contributing ball player and like a consistent engine. But when you say the size, I think that's interesting. So I never really known that. So being a little bit undersized at defensive end, do you think that is advantageous going to outside linebacker?
Well, the way I look at it is he's 6'2", 255. That's almost the exact same size as Charles Wiley, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think Wiley's broader shoulders, probably got longer arms and stuff, but on paper, at least, I think he fits the mold of that position a little bit better than defensive end, where guys are typically a couple inches taller.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the big question with Truman Bell is what's he going to be like outside of the backfield, right? When he has to step out and cover in the flats, pass protection.
Is he ready to react? Yeah.
When they run a speed option to the boundary, is going to be able to turn their corner and get up the sideline, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I'd say definitely he's got the athleticism to do so, though.
I think so.
It depends on if he's quick enough to react sort of mentally or quick enough on his feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm hopeful about that one. I think it's interesting.
We haven't seen him had to do really anything to that caliber, at least not so far.
Not so much.
Not the position he's played. So that'll be cool. I have confidence in that move. I mean, I like the move. And is that something that we've got enough help at the defensive end position to be able to move that over, and the defensive end doesn't really take any steps back?
I think so. Yeah, I think the depth at defensive end is pretty bountiful in comparison to outside linebacker. Another guy that moved position is Julian Williams. So he went from wide receiver to running back. And of course, following in the legacy of his brother Jarvion.
Come on. Can we play this up, please? Can we talk about how freaking epic this is? This is the brother of the previous all-time leading very first 1,000-yard rusher at UTSA, Jarvion Williams. Dub, what up? Baby brother, wide receiver, now moving to running back whenever the position is becoming available. Here he is as he'll be a redshirt junior next year. I mean, dude, it's all lining up perfect for Julian to take the baton and be the next great running back for UTSA, just like Big Bro was. I mean, this is poetry happening. This is UTSA history being etched in stone, and I can see it. Jared. I can see the highlight moments happening for Julian now.
It's funny because UTSA has had this legacy, this dynasty of Converse Judson running backs. I don't know if they've ever had two Judson Rockets in the backfield at the same time, because D'Anthony Lewis is back there as well.
Oh, wow. Good point.
And I think D'Anthony Lewis being hurt for the spring is probably a big reason why Julian's making this move, right? Because the bodies at running back just wouldn't be there otherwise.
And then with Julian starting his first game as a starting running back against his previous school, U of H, in his new stadium, the stadium that his brother built, the Alamo Dome. Are you kidding me, Jared? I mean, dude, this is huge, man. I love it. Give it to me.
Damn, I love your ability to spin a narrative out. That's it's commendable, man.
You gotta have someone to make some headlines.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna wait and see mode with Julian on running back. I think you think back to when he was a quarterback in high school. A lot of his best plays was essentially him running a wildcat kind of offense,
threat, right?
Just a read option kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
So it would stand to reason he would have some running ability out of the backfield there. I don't know. I mean, I don't see cracking the rotation wide receiver. So I think it makes sense just to
definitely
see.
Not.
Yeah,
definitely
just to see how he looks with the ball in his hand.
The room's too full at wide receiver.
Right.
The room is too full. Here you can go right down the hallway. No one's sitting in there, and your brother's jersey's on the wall. So let's go. Let's do it. I mean, yeah, it's his production's insane. So in high school, he threw for 60 touchdowns. He ran for 58.
It's crazy, man.
That's really talking about dual threat. Yeah. So Julian, you're wait and see. I'm saying book it just because I love the narrative, baby. Because I love the narrative.
I love that.
All right. So who else we got?
Okay. And the last one that I noticed was Ernesto Alvarez is running with the ones as left tackle. So I think that he did play a little bit of offensive tackle last season, but I think he's moved around the line a lot. So I was a little bit surprised to see him starting at left tackle to start the spring.
Okay. Interesting.
I haven't seen any clips of him. I saw one clip of him actually blocking in live action at left tackle. Definitely not enough to have an assessment.
Make a decision. Yeah.
Right. But he definitely doesn't fit the mold of a left tackle. He's only 6'2", 295. So it's really quite tiny for a left tackle. But, he's a guy that's proven he can play in multiple positions. And I think starting the spring with a veteran senior like him that knows the offense really well makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a challenge to the young guys and, just seeing who's going to step up here, is Ronnie Garza ready to make that jump from, high school to being a starting left tackle redshirt freshman? That's tough. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's just one of those things where he sort of needs that guiding hand. You bring up the seniority aspect of it, guy that knows the playbook and knows the offense. And maybe it's something that sort of has that gradual but certain transition kind of throughout the year on a slow and steady basis. Right. And yeah. We'll see. Yeah. That's an interesting one.
And then also wonder too, the UConn transfer, Alex Wyant, came in really late last cycle. I don't know if he was eligible to play last year or not, But he's kind of got more of the build of an offensive tackle. 6'5", 310. He's looked good in a couple of clips I've seen from the spring so far. So I wonder if he's going to be in the mix.
Yeah.
But I mean, really past those two, you don't see like your prototypical offensive tackle in the roster right now. I know they're recruiting some. They're hopefully going to be here in the summer, but I don't know. It's a tough position to read in the spring right now. I'm really curious how that shakes out.
Definitely is. So we've also got not just roster changes, but some coaching updates. The staff.
Yeah. So the first one, I don't know if I would say it was a shocker because I think everyone expected him to move on to a really big job after this past season. And he ended up doing that. It just took him some time. That's defensive line / co-defensive coordinator Rod Wright leaving for the Miami Hurricane.
That's right. And yeah, it was warranted. You knew it was going to happen, and God definitely deserves it. So yeah, definitely to Rod Wright, going to the U,
contracts. Baby. Yeah, look at the contracts Miami's throwing around. Like he definitely got a huge pay raise.
Going to the U, baby. Oh yeah, come on. And he's going to Miami. Can't really beat it.
Yeah,
can't really beat it.
But the reason I said it was like maybe kind of surprising is just the timing of it, right? Like it really seemed like UTSA had, came out unscathed through this coaching cycle of just losing the offensive coordinator.
Looked like we were kind of solidified going forth with what we had, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think Coach Wright got his offer to go to Miami. Well, the week the spring ball started or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit unfortunate. Especially because the guy that everyone had kind of, had their thumb on as the next man up as a defensive line coach had actually left as well. So he, Coach Sadiq Haynes, he came over to UTSA from Sam Houston State, was the defensive line coach there, won a national championship.
Yep.
It was kind of a strange move at the time because it's like, why would you go from being, the defensive line coach at a really, really great OCS program where you just won a national championship to just being an analyst at UTSA, right? Yeah, you go up in division, probably go up in pay, but, not a move that you see guys make all that often. Well, it started to become pretty obvious that Coach Haynes was like the hand-selected successor to Coach Rod Wright to take over defensive line coach. So then I was a little bit bummed when I saw that Coach Haynes had taken an offer at Delaware to be their defensive line coach.
Right.
Then you're going back to the FCS level again. Granted, it's his alma mater, but it's like I could see where he came in expecting to get a promotion at the end of the year. Coach Wright stays at the time, and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to being an on-field coach. So everything happens for a reason. Coach Haynes goes to Delaware. He recruits there for 3-4 weeks. Coach Wright leaves to Miami. Hey, Coach Traylor puts that call and he says, come home, brother. Come on back to SA. I know it's cold up there in Delaware.
Unbelievable, man.
They had a couple of sweet teas, pop up in that char salsa. He was on a plane immediately because he was coach of the first day of spring ball. I don't even think he was officially announced. He was
already That's freaking awesome. That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. That is great. That is great. So in Delaware for, probably about a month tops and right back down to UTSA. You got to love it.
Mm-hmm.
And were you super surprised for them to get Haynes?
Not really. Because I was like, man, I'm sure UTSA could just money whip Delaware.
Yes.
Right. I don't know.
Might be what they did.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a pay difference it was to be a defensive line coach at Delaware to be a defensive line coach at UTSA. I imagine it's a decent jump. But I think what really sold the deal for Coach Haynes was probably his relationship with Coach Traylor.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it moved so quickly for him to come back to UTSA, right? It's not like he was going out and applying for all these other jobs at the time. He came back to UTSA for a reason. And I think that reason is because he probably loves these players. He knows these players. But also his relationship with Coach Traylor and the rest of the staff, I imagine, was the selling point there. So just glad to see that continuity plan for UTSA end up working out. And, I hope he got some awesome recruits for Delaware in the short time he was there, because I sure hope so, I know that's a hard decision for him to kind of leave his alma mater hanging out to dry like that. I'm sure that must have been tough.
That's really tough. It is tough. But got a rich history. Defensive line coaches here at UTSA. So
for sure,
Canes is sort of the next one in that line. Gotta love it.
For sure, absolutely, man. I should do a blog post on like former UTSA defensive line coaches. It's
where
really
they are now.
Yeah, man. It's
where
wild.
they are now would be awesome.
Yep. Okay, so there were also 2 promotions internally for UTSA over the past couple of weeks as UTSA got into spring ball. First off was a director of player personnel promotion. So this is a backfill for the position that Joe Price left to become wide receiver coach. And that's Zach Brown.
Mm-hmm. Zach Brown, the new director of player personnel. And so this is a pretty major move, wouldn't you say? He's essentially going to be in charge of a huge just laundry list of duties when it comes to recruiting, right?
Yeah, he's a busy man for sure. So he oversees, the other positions that work in recruiting. So like the director of high school relationships,
right? All
that kind of stuff, all the assistants who help, just staying in contact with the recruits and organizing the visits and all that good stuff. So that's a lot of responsibility for sure. And I was a little surprised. I really thought they were going to go for a Texas high school football guy here. But I think it says a lot about Coach Brown that they didn't do that they went with the internal promotion. They obviously know Coach Brown really well. They know what he's about. They know what he's capable of.
Yeah.
Seems like a smart guy. He has a master's in journalism from Columbia.
Wow.
So it's not really a resume that I would say you would see often for a UTSA football coach.
Shout out to my journalism majors, though. What up?
No easy grind. It's crazy.
No easy grind. That's nuts. Wonder if he listens to the podcast. He must be a fan of the media.
Who knows, man? Maybe he's ghostwriting blog posts. You guys might not never know.
Bro. Shout out Zach Brown.
Have we ever had a ghostwriter? I think we have, right?
Zach Brown, if you're interested, we will sign the non-disclosure, my dog.
We pay for all contributor posts.
Oh man.
But no, I think this is great because there's continuity there, right? Like he knows all the other coaches, like he knows what they look for in players, because this position is also responsible for evaluating players too. It's not just a recruiting aspect. Like it's also identifying prospects,
identifying the talent in the first place. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Who we're going to pursue. Yeah.
I think having been in the room with these coaches, with Coach Traylor and the rest of the other guys on staff, like I'm sure he's learned from them quite a bit on how to evaluate and identify guys and kind of know the difference between a guy who has potential versus a guy who could be a real standout.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what Coach Brown does. I think Coach Price was an amazing DPP, Director of Player Personnel. And he's still on staff. So, Coach Brown has that mentor right there to reach out to and get advice from. And I believe that Coach Price is still I think he's still like the director of recruiting or something like that. So he still has responsibility of the recruiting aspect. Mm-hmm. So it's good that Coach Brown's not just like left to swim by himself and that he's going to be able to lean on the rest of the staff as he kind of moves up into this new position.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was one more.
Yeah. So Hunter Redmond is a guy who I feel like he's been on staff at UTSA forever. Maybe that's just my memory failing me.
2018.
That's forever, dude. That's forever.
4 seasons. Yeah.
Beginning of the podcast, we were talking about Dalton Sturm out there running 40s on the intramurals field. Hunter Redmond was there for that.
So. Yeah, I mean, 4 years is like a third of our history.
Like, I know.
Yeah,
I think it's good that it's good that Coach Redmond is there. It's good that Coach Kevin Brown is there because like they can keep this program humble. They've seen the modest beginnings of this program.
That's right. Keep it humble for sure. We need that. We absolutely need that.
But I think this is a home run promotion for UTSA. I think Coach Redmond's got a great future in college football. He's got great connections. He played at Tech under Coach Kingsbury. So, he's familiar with that whole group of coaches. And, a lot of guys that played on those staffs have gone on to coach in the high school ranks. So I think Redmond really has an upper hand there and just getting started because he probably has a ton of connections from his playing days even. His dad, Ron Redmond, legendary coach, Coach at Johnson, forever had a ton of success building out that program there when that school got started. I can't remember what year that was, but it's a newer school. Naturally he's got those San Antonio connections as well. He knows the city. He knows the movers and shakers here.
Yeah, yeah. His dad was a head coach here, and that's who he played for at Johnson High. I wonder if his dad is in the THSCA along with Trailer. I wonder if they're
like in the Hall of Fame or just in it at all.
No, the Texas High School Coaches Association.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah,
I think he's retired now, so I don't know.
I wonder if Trailer cross paths him.
Oh,
back in the days, coaching days, for sure,
absolutely,
yeah. So it's always cool to see those tie-ins and it coming back around. So
absolutely, yeah.
Hunter Redmond, director of high school relations, and that's 3 big staff moves, man. 3 huge staff moves.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's still some positions left to fill too, because when Coach Traylor signed his new contract, part of the agreement was that they were going to add some additional positions. So I think this director of high school relations is certainly one of them. Something tells me there's probably going to be some more. So hopefully we'll see some additional hires in that regard, because man, you go through those, I've said this a million times now, but you go through those SMU and those Memphis and those, Tulane, USF websites, they have a lot more people on staff than UTSA does. So there's still plenty of work to be done for UTSA to be competitive from a resource allocation standpoint.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, but I'm excited about all 3 of these, man. I think they're great.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
Moves.
Yeah, and I love the sense of development that Coach Traylor has. I think it's something that maybe gets overlooked a little bit, not just in college football, but just in general. From anyone who manages people. I think
all 3 of these are essentially internal promotions.
Yeah, and there's been more too, right?
Right, exactly that. Yes.
I think across the board, I think people are too quick to look to make a splashy outside hire when really investing in your people and giving them guidance and mentoring them can really go a long way. Because,
if you feel like you have the right guys on staff, why not just continue to believe in that and trust in that? I mean, it's amazing how drastically polar of a approach this is compared to when Frank Wilson had his coaching turnaround, right? I mean, it was all about hammering the phones and hitting the connects and bringing in outside talent. And this is on this side, I think sort of like the last thing they want to do is look to the outside. They would much rather bring in outside to fill a much more minor position and leave the major positions to be internally. Oh, I think that's just a great approach for not only building up your staff, but also just creating a really great culture amongst your staff.
Well said.
Right. And maybe even building a little bit of longevity. And you've got some guys that are sticking around in these player personnel and high school relations positions that can really build something, lasting here, recruiting wise at UTSA, Yeah,
that's a really good point. All right, Itchy, let's take a Cumbia break, and then we'll be back in just a second to talk about the NFL draft and how it affects UTSA.
Wow,
Combine,
let's do it.
Pro Day.
Yes, huge pro talk.
All right, good to get the Cumbia back. It's also good to have some UTSA Roadrunners back in the NFL draft.
Yes, sir, it is. We're doing it, and we're doing it well.
I'm fist pumping in the air, man. My segues are on point. Still got it in my old age.
Yes, I love it. The combine was absolutely tremendous for UTSA, showing out. And, little by little, we keep sort of just tackling these milestones as a program. And, first it was one guy getting drafted at the back of the draft, and then you got a first round pick, and now you're making some noise at the combine with several dudes getting invitations to the combine. And I mean, we're always making noise here. It's just awesome.
Yeah, and I love that 2 of the 3 guys at the combine are San Antonio products as well. Just kind of goes to reaffirm that there's talent in San Antonio.
Yes.
I know Sincere and Spencer were both recruited by programs outside the city as well. but it just still goes to show that San Antonio is under recruited. The top players here are as good as anywhere in the nation, right? And I think it also like reaffirms that UTSA is doing the right thing and recruiting San Antonio first and then moving outward from there. Well, let's get started with the guy who seems to be making the biggest splash. Both at the combine and moving into the draft, and that's cornerback Tariq Woolen.
Tariq Woolen ties for the 4th fastest time ever on the 40-yard dash in NFL at the NFL Combine on a 4.26 on his second attempt. Just unbelievable.
I think he could hit 4.2 flat. If you watch the camera angle, that's like facing directly towards him. He was really swaying in his lane a lot, which slows you down quite a bit. If he would have ran a straight line, I think he could have shaved off that 0.06. Because
the combine's an electronic clock, right? It's all automatic.
Yeah.
Whereas, your pro day, you've got a couple guys standing there with stopwatches. But if you're not right sort of where that, I guess it's like what laser radar is. Yeah. You can add a couple milliseconds.
I think it's also like your running mechanics and like the wind resistance and all that stuff too. Those small things, like when you're literally talking fractions of a second, that can make or break the difference. So I'm sure there have been times in Tariq's career where he's ran a 4.2 flat, right? I've no doubt about that.
1,000%.
Saying it. But it wasn't just his 40 time that was impressive. His wingspan was insane. Nearly 34-inch wingspan. Obviously, he measured in a 6'4". It's crazy for a cornerback, and hit a 42-inch vertical. I don't know. It's wild.
Unreal.
So I learned about this service called Mocking the Draft, and what this website does is it takes all the like mock drafts out there, whether they're fan created, journalist created, ESPN does it, whatever. And it just kind of takes an aggregate of all those and it figures out, average position for a potential draft pick, averages those out over time, sees the trends, yada, yada, yada. All that to say, right now, almost every mock draft has Tariq going somewhere in the second round. There have been a couple that have him right up there on the edge, moving to that first round. But I think it's safe to say he's going in the second round. He's going to get some serious money, man. He's going to get a nice contract. I'm just excited for him, man.
Yeah, dude. I was going to ask, like, what are the chances that Tariq Woolen is a first-round pick at this point? It's still pretty far-fetched. Because, he is getting so much attention and talk around him right now.
Yeah. I wouldn't say far-fetched. I would say it's an outside shot. Just because he's got such a rare combination of physical traits. I don't know, maybe like a 5 to 10% chance that he moves into the first round.
And you're pretty much putting your money on a second round pick.
Yeah.
No later than that.
Yeah. Well, no, I think he has a chance to go in the third or fourth for sure. But I think it's more likely he would go in the third than first personally.
Yeah, I would say it's fair. Third would probably bigger chance at first. I think he's a surefire for a second round pick. I really do.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of gas around him. I think there's a lot of teams that could use a cornerback, and the guy's just so good. He's so talented, and the way he's built is perfect. And how long has he been playing the position? Like what, two years now?
A year and a half, 2 years.
So,
and part of that was like through the COVID lockdown, so he wasn't even getting coached by his own coaches. He was like training with some guy off Instagram.
I think it's one of those things where like coaches know, NFL coaches know that if we pass on this guy, we're going to be kicking ourselves in the butt for it. As in a second round, a team that needs a cornerback, they're going to know. So yeah, it's pretty phenomenal what he's been able to do to his stock in just such a short amount of time.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think the coaching the GMs and the coaches know that he's just scratching the surface of, where he could end up as a player. Because we have seen that progression here at UTSA going from his first year playing quarterback, just that last game or two of last season and throughout spring and all that. And then, he had moments this past season where he looked like one of the best cornerbacks like out, just I don't know. It's just so hard to describe. Him being 6'4".
Consistently. Consistently. And he put NFL coaches around him. I mean, his development would just skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
Really will.
So. It might take a year for him to really become like a solidified starter. I think he's going to have a lot to learn. He's going to have a lot to improve upon, right? But I think he has Pro Bowl potential, right? With like coaching.
Like, look at what Keaton Wallace is doing in the G League. Yeah. Right. That all of that was there, right? And it's sort of like getting unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
Same sort of thing could happen with Tariq. He gets onto a practice squad or is playing a third string position, and he really could just develop, and just sort of force his way into really being a force, a contributor. So it's exciting to see Tariq, man. I would say he's definitely got the highest ceiling as far as like an NFL career sort of goes. Certainly. In this class, yeah.
So the next guy coming for UTSA is Spencer Buford. So Spencer was UTSA's, I would say, first legit 4-star signee coming out of Converse Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Was he Wagner or Judson? He was Wagner.
I think he was Wagner.
Yeah. So he weighed in 304 pounds, 6'4". But what's interesting about Buford is that his wingspan is much more indicative of your typical offensive tackle size. So his wingspan would like translate to him being like 6'5", 6'6", like what you would typically see of an offensive tackle at the next level. So I think that kind of makes up for him being a little bit on the short side for an offensive tackle. I think his athleticism numbers at the combine were slightly above average. He ran a 5.1940, which sounds slow, but when we're talking offensive lineman, it's about par. At a 27.5-inch vertical.
Yeah, he had compliments on his footwork. Too. I mean, coming sort of the commentary about him coming out of the combine.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like Tariq and Spencer are kind of in opposite directions. I think with Buford, his film is what's going to pop out to you more so than his physical measurements. Whereas with Tariq, like he had some busted plays that are going to show up on film. And, he even got picked on in a couple of games, made plenty of mistakes because he was still learning the position, right? But it's so tantalizing to see a guy of his size, his speed, to know what his potential is. But with Buford, it's a little bit different because he's not going to be the biggest guy in the field. He's not going to be the strongest guy in the field. But you can watch him on film, and he rarely gets beat. It is just so rare to see him lose on one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
And, he's a punishing blocker. He can drive guys off the ball. So, I have questions about how his ability will translate to the NFL level where guys are bigger, stronger, faster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like he has like opposite advantages of what Tariq has going into the draft.
Yeah, I think the strength is going to be huge here for Spencer, as far as him being able to make it at the next level.
Yeah.
Being able to sort of hold his own and not get pushed around.
Yeah, he's quick on his feet, but he's also not a guy that can just like bulldoze over a 330-pound.
That's right.
Lineman.
That's right. I feel like that. Yeah.
Right. So that's gonna be something to watch. Can he put some weight on too? Like if he could play, 10 pounds of muscle heavier, I think that'd really benefit him moving up to the NFL. What's your read on his draft status?
I think he could go as a late round pick. It's going to be hard though. Yeah. I think he's got a better chance of going as a UDFA, but it's possible for him to get a late round pick.
Yeah. So I think he's kind of similar to like Josiah Taliafa, where maybe he won't get drafted, but if he doesn't, he's going to be like a premier free agent. Like he's not going to sign for the minimum. Like
for sure.
He's going to make a roster somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. He'll be a surefire to make a roster. I think no matter which way it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see him going any earlier than the 6th round. I do think that he's going to get drafted. I just feel good about it because I think he could play both guard and tackle. I think he's going to be a utility lineman for someone.
Yeah, he's versatile for sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to impress in his interviews. So, hopefully we see some improvement heading in his pro day. Maybe his bench press. I don't even know if he did the bench press at the combine. But hopefully his numbers just get a little bit better. And yeah, I see him going like 7th round maybe.
And then there's that man, Sincere McCormick.
How many times have we said Converse on this podcast?
That's right, man. That's right. Yeah, someone's got to tally that. Converse's very owned. San Antonio's very own. Sincere McCormick showing up at the combine. What did we think? Ran a 4.640. Decent on the time. You know, I mean, his size always going to be his biggest knock, 5'8.5", 205. But at the end of the day, he's a really, really great runner. I just don't know. If it's there, Jared.
I don't either. I hope he gets drafted. I think the best bet for Sincere is to be that undrafted free agent that, you know, takes a year to figure it out and then really blows up the following year. Right. I don't think that his speed, he's just kind of in between, you know, like he doesn't have the best size. He doesn't have the best speed.
Yeah.
It's hard to see where a team would really like kind of stick their neck out for a guy like Sincere.
And let's be honest, you know, I mean, as great as he was of a running back at UTSA, I mean, he wasn't exactly making these CUSA defenses look just foolish out here. I mean, he wasn't destroying guys, just ripping them apart. He had his games, he had his days, and then we made this argument on this podcast a lot throughout the season that he had a better season in 2020 than he did in 2021. I think so. And we talk about the miles he got put on him. He really did get beat up a lot, but so I don't even know if if he was even as strong of a runner in 2021 as he was in 2020. But that aside, I don't know if either of those versions are NFL caliber. I just know the size and the speed. Like you say, he's good at speed. He's good at moving and vision, but I just don't know if he has any of that next level, that NFL level in any of those departments that's going to get him there. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that he has that one area in his game where he's just like a clear standout and like he's going to be like top of the draft and in his position at like one specific thing, right? Like I don't think there's anyone out there that's going to tell you he's a bad running back or that he wouldn't be a good asset to a team. But when you look at how many touches, how many hits he's already taken at UTSA, it's hard for a team to be willing to do a long-term commitment of like a multi-year contract to him with all that wear and tear presumably put onto his body. But, you know, if I'm Spencer, I'm sitting here, if I'm Sincere, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I see a shot. I see one chance to get out there and prove that, you know, I can do this, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's been his story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Against the odds. So why not? Now, do you want to sort of just maybe kind of break down pro day versus combine, maybe for some listeners who just kind of not totally up to speed?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I was a little surprised around the bowl season. People didn't really seem to understand what a pro day was.
Yeah.
So a pro day is a day where pretty much every college program does this. They organize essentially like their own combine that they would have on their campus. So the hope is to do it on one day. You've got all of your seniors out there and the NFL scouts, GMs, coaches, they kind of make their routes throughout the country and they go to all these pro days, right? So they're looking for any guys that might have fallen through the crack. You know, the guys like Tariq, like they're not really there to see them in most cases. Like if there's a guy that ran a bad 40 at the combine, he might run it again at his pro day in the hopes that, you know, he can prove that it was a fluke and he can do better, whatever.
Right.
Pro days really benefit most of those guys that are on the bubble, guys that are not obvious, like surefire NFL level players, but guys that might be worth giving an undrafted contract to or bringing onto a practice squad, stuff like that. I would say like that's the main draw of the pro day. Just, you know, for those guys to really get their one chance to show their ability, to show their athleticism to these NFL scouts.
So on a UTSA, you'd say that's like a Clarence Hicks,
exactly,
a Jalen Haynes,
exactly.
Some other names, Ahafitu Maka, maybe.
I thought Mako was coming back for.
Oh, you're right. He is coming back.
Oh, he scared me.
Yeah. Any other names that come to mind? I mean, Jalen Haynes and Clarence Hicks are for sure kind of like those that come to mind when you think of a UTSA pro day, who's out there to really prove their stock. Because those are two names that I could see being late draft picks, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks.
Yeah, I'm high on Clarence Hicks. I think Clarence Hicks has really flown under the radar.
Heck yeah.
I think he's a guy who just really blossomed so late in his career that, you know, he didn't get the publicity. I totally see him playing that kind of speed rush outside linebacker position in the NFL. I don't know if he'll be drafted. It's always an outside shot to not go to the combine and get drafted. But I could definitely see a team falling in love with him. I think he has, you know, some questions to address as far as his versatility goes. Like, how long can he stay on the field? Is he a 3-down player or more of a specialist type guy? But I think he's going to put up some pretty freaky numbers in like the 3-cone drills. I think he's going to look really good in just like pass rushing drills. You know, he's a speed guy for sure, but he's always been kind of crafty. He's got pretty good technique. Yeah. So I think he's a guy who's really going to benefit from the pro day. And also with the pro day, sometimes you'll see, you know, like a junior quarterback throwing to these guys that have graduated, or you might see, you know, an underclassman receiver out there catching passes from a senior quarterback or whatever. So it also gives some of the younger guys a chance to, you know, kind of get a little bit of visibility in front of these scouts as well. And maybe they'll come back for practice, you know, in the fall and check them out again. So whenever you do have a guy like Tariq, that's for sure going to go high in the draft. Every team is going to come to your pro day, right? So having that happen repeatedly just increases the visibility of your players and your talent to these scouts. You know, also just those chance encounters of a scout, you know, being in the bathroom of the urinal next to the quarterback's coach and like, hey, you got any other guys that are young? And they're like, oh yeah, this Xavier Spencer guy hasn't seen the field yet, but he's just as much of a freak athlete as Tariq is. Well, that's going to plant a seed in that scout's head, and they're going to come back in a couple of years and they're going to check out Xavier Spencer. So this is how you really build programs that get guys into the league, is when you have talent and you have a guy that breaks through, and then it just kind of creates a cycle that repeats itself as you develop your players. So
no doubt. Whenever we're looking at UTSA in the draft, we're looking at April 28th. We don't know if we'll see any names on that first day, but maybe on the 29th and the 30th, we get a couple UTSA names called out.
Hey, how cool would it be to have 4 guys drafted? Wouldn't that be insane?
Gosh, man. That's hard to wrap your mind around.
I know. How long has it been since UT's had 4 guys get drafted in 1 year? I was probably in middle school. And there's a legit chance that it could happen.
Yeah. Very much so. We could see it, man. Yeah.
Well, hey,
making our way up.
There's another draft that just took place other than the NFL draft.
Yeah, you might not know about it, folks, but the USFL, United, what is it?
I think it's the United States Football League.
United States Football League, which is going to be what the Alliance of American Football was, sort of. It'd be a spring football, little sister to the NFL, but it's, we'll see.
Development league.
Well, yeah, development league. We'll see if it ends up sticking around. You know, these things tend to be a little wishy-washy on the promise that they have, but we're hope so. And there were 4 Roadrunners that got their names called. You talk about 4 runners getting drafted. We had 4 Roadrunners get drafted to the USFL, son. Hell yeah. So that was the Michigan Panthers taking Josh Dunlop, the New Orleans Breakers taking Brandon Rolfe, and the Philadelphia Stars taking 2 Roadrunners, Jordan Moore and Solomon Wise.
Which of these teams are you rooting for? That's the question.
I don't even know what all the teams are, but if the Stars have 2 Roadrunners and they're both start and I mean, what if just the Philadelphia Stars linebacking core is just Jordan Moore and Solomon Wise, and they become, you know, like the Bash brothers of the USFL out there, and that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they'll probably play opposite of each other too. Like Solomon would probably be on the strong side, Jordan would probably be on the weak side, if I had to guess.
That would be so sweet.
So that could be fun.
On the field at the same time. Yeah, just ripping dudes to pieces.
I'm going to go with the Michigan Panthers, though. I've been a Josh Dunlop fan for so long.
From the jump.
I swore up and down that he was a next level offensive tackle. He's still out there cashing checks. So I'm not sure where the Michigan Panthers play at, but they've got my full support.
Wow, Houston Gamblers are coming back. Same logo and everything. That's pretty cool. That's sweet.
All right. As soon as the Houston team drafts a Roadrunner, I'm switching alliances.
Yeah, for sure.
But for this year and this year only, it's all about the Michigan Panthers, baby.
Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for USFL.
I guess there's going to be an XFL draft at some point too, huh?
I would imagine, because all these teams are actually in places that already have NFL teams.
Oh,
Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Houston. So New Jersey. So yeah, very interesting. Michigan, yeah, Detroit already. So XFL, I guess, is not going to be. I don't know. We covered AAF because we had a team in San Antonio and we had a blast covering Commanders, man. And
yeah, we did a lot of Commanders coverage, honestly.
But I don't think XFL is slated to bring anyone to SA.
I think that changed like last week because there was like some news article that some coach got hired to be the head coach of the team. We're like, wait, they have a team in San Antonio? Like no one knew. It's like, you're kind of burying the lead here.
What? Dude, San Antonio gets oh my gosh, San Antonio gets an XFL team. That's perfect. That's a perfect matrimony right there.
They should just call them the Commanders and go to court for the rights to that name.
Yeah, that's so crap. And we didn't get to cover that here on the pod, but maybe we'll one day. But it's totally crap. San Antonio owns Commanders, man. You can't freaking bop off.
Well, I guess if SA gets an XFL team, stand by for XFL coverage.
Heck yeah, stand by for XFL coverage. We're coming back, baby. I'm so pumped on that. Yep. Yeah.
All right, Agent. Well, thank you as always for episode 178.
Whoa.
Appreciate you being here with me. I'm not sure what our next podcast will be. I think it's about time we got a guest on. That might be up next.
Yeah. We've got to sort of figure out, because spring game is slated for Easter weekend, and so that's still a little ways away. And so we've got
we need a filler in between, I'd say.
We do. Yeah. All we really got is a little bit of baseball talk between now and then, depending on a couple of series. So for sure need some filler. I could get down on that. I could certainly get down on that.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys for, giving us a listen. Be sure to subscribe on your podcast feed of choice and check us out on Patreon.
Yes.
We've got all kinds of great content over there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think I'm going to do a couple of draft videos for some of these guys for UTSA. We'll see if I'm able to get around to it. But yeah,
Jared's been teasing that to me behind the scenes a little bit too. So.
Yeah. Okay, I got to make it happen. I already got all the clips of the mega plays from the film breakdowns on Patreon, so it should be easy to put together, right? I say that now. All right, guys. Well, thank you as always for listening to Aluminum Audible. We'll catch you guys next time.